Today's Ford Explorer ST day, changing it up in Holland City up here now. It's that time of the year, it's spring. So I'll give you some impressions of the Ford ST. You know, this car is just, to me, a really great, practical, all. Now, today, you know, I just plugged in my iPhone and bing bam, there's your Apple CarPlay. And many a days, as I explained yesterday, my Bullet just doesn't happen. You know, it's really nice about this car is it has a cell phone holder right here. That's my biggest gripe with all these car manufacturers. They don't want to put an area for your cell phone. It's ridiculous. So that's a huge, that's huge, if you know what I'm saying. And then the wireless capabilities right there, which, yeah, it's kind of convenient, not that great in my eyes. So not a plus. And then your dial shifter, of course, to put her in gear and move her around. My biggest gripe, as I've mentioned, is you gotta take the parking brake. It doesn't release on its own. And you know, in some cars, there's a little trick to that. You gotta put your seatbelt on, so you gotta grab. Now, another thing I really like about this car is not only does it have the heated seat, the heated steering wheel, and the heated steering wheel in this car is really just right, because a lot of these cars, the heated steering wheel, I notice on my trucks, they just get way too hot. I mean, they just burn up your hands after a while. So that heated steering wheel is really nice. But the nicest thing about this car is the motion seats. And I don't hear any reference on the reviews of the, you know, what SUV can you buy right now that has motion seats, especially mid-size SUV. Which, you know, what vehicles out there are offering the motion seat, massaging your lower back and butt and all that other good stuff. Now, another thing that's pretty neat about this car is the ride mode settings, which I've talked about in these videos. And one thing this car has is the auto stop, where your engine turns off and your light to help save on gasoline. And that's a big conversation with my Ford Tremor video, is the gas mileage. Now, here is a V6 setup in this car, and we're getting, you know, close to 20 miles per gallon. And then yet my Ford Tremor truck, that's, in my opinion, a big heavy truck with big tires, is getting 12 miles a gallon. And some out there are like, man, that's ridiculous. Well, yeah, it is ridiculous because you're not getting high mileage. You want to get a truck that gets high mileage. And I've owned so many trucks that I've talked about in numerous videos here. And something I really haven't talked about is a Toyota Tacoma truck. And I've owned so many Toyota Tacoma trucks. Over the last 10 years, I've had all those Tacoma Pros, and every single one of them. If you can get 18 miles a gallon out of that thing, you're lucky. And the reality is you're probably more at 16. And just my most recent Toyota Tacoma Pro, that truck there, I put a little bigger tire on it, didn't lift or anything, but oh my gosh, that thing was struggling to get 13, 14 miles a gallon. And that thing was just a total. The adaptive cruise control, which is right here, you just push this little button here, and now you got your set. So I just set it to 49 miles an hour, crank it back a little bit there. And then if you look here, this is your pace for the vehicle. So if you have a car in front of you, this actually is telling you now how far away or how close you can be to the car in front of you. And I give credit, or I give Ford credit, they've really done a good job on this adaptive cruise control. You know, I've had numerous manufacturers, and each one kind of has their own little glitch. And for me, Ford, I think, has done a really good job of kind of figuring it out. And Dodge, Chrysler, theirs is a really good product too. Another thing I talk about, being I kind of jump from car to car to car. If you kind of follow my videos, you'll see I'm kind of in a different vehicle, you know, not every day, but sometimes I do jump from car to car, from day to day, or sometimes I'll just drive the same vehicle for 2-3 days, and then I jump to another one. And my biggest gripe is the seating and the comfort. And for me, I've always had more enjoyment riding around in SUV vehicles and or trucks, just because of the seating. You know, the seating, you're just in a more upright position. You don't feel cramped. I mean, this car here is spoiling me because I have the motion massaging seats, and the heated seat or the vented seat, the auto zone, you know, for your comfort. And it's just really a car that you can just kind of slide out of and slide into, versus, you know, you buy the Mustang, you're crawling in, and not radical, because I've had the Corvettes and the Jags, and I've got the Supra, and I've had, you know, other smaller cars where you have to more like climb into the car and climb out, which that gets old if you do that for a while. So that's why it's a sports car. But as far as just comfort goes, the SUV, that's what's so popular today, as you well know, is it's a vehicle where people just slide in, slide out. So easy access is just really nice. And that's what's really nice about this Ford Explorer, is you really do have a fun factor feel driving this vehicle down the road. And I don't know, these journalists just sometimes puzzle me. And how much do you want to connect to the road? I mean, there's some cars that to me are just too mundane because they're so quiet, they're so floating down the road. I mean, you know, if you drive a really high-line car, you know, you can kind of get that. I mean, I've had the Land Rover. They were just in regular mode. I don't have the sport mode, and you can kind of hear her, and she just kind of gets up and gets going. And that's another nice thing about this car. She's got plenty of power. I've owned so many vehicles over my lifetime, and you know, one of the biggest challenges of a lot of vehicles, especially from years ago, was it's just underpowered. You push that gas pedal down, and it's like, come on, man. Just incredible how we today have 300 horsepower 4-cylinder motors, and I mean, and very efficient. You know, the turbo does a heck of a job to help these cars get life into them, and they're still very emission friendly and compliant. But you know, the cars are just really today's cars, I mean, you just can't go wrong too much for the most part, where technology is and manufacturing is. You know, I've had the Hyundai, and I should say Hyundais, and now I have my first Honda car ever, and I've got the Toyotas, and the Ford, and the Chevy, and the Dodge, and I've had the Mazda, and you can kind of go through just about every product brand. I've had the Lincoln, and I've had the Audi, I've had the Mercedes-Benz, I've had the Volkswagens. That was one of my favorite back in the 90s through the 2000 years. And just off the tip of my tongue, I'm thinking of other brands. Couldn't go to the Fiat, even though came close from getting a little Fiat Spider, but couldn't do that. And came close to buying an Alfa Romeo. This past weekend, I decided to go ahead and get the oil changed. I like to get the oil changed between 1,000 and 2,000 miles. Even though today's technology, the manufacturers are trying to keep in the CAFE standards, the carbon footprints, the language, where they've pushed out oil changes from 3,000 miles years and years ago to 5,000 miles to 10,000 miles. So you buy a BMW, you're at 15,000, potentially 20,000 mile oil change intervals. And based on the technology today and what these engines can do, they're so much more emission free, and contaminants getting into the oil and stuff. They're trying to save their global impact of waste on petroleum-based products being oil. So for me, I'm just on the page of, hey man, you get a brand new car, it's breaking in, I wouldn't go that 5,000-10,000 mile first interval. I would definitely change that oil first 1,000, 2,000 miles, because I just think impurities of the motor breaking in get into that oil, up and down. And I used to work in the oil industry back in the 80s and early 90s, and a lot of people don't realize that there's just such a huge amount of money that the government makes off of fuel and oil. And I've always have had mixed feelings on the electric agenda, because not that, it's trying to help the carbon footprint in this world, which, yeah, I understand that, and that's a great thing. At the same time, the challenge is these world governments rely on this oil to, fund the governments. And whether you realize it or not, you've got close to 50 cents a gallon in fuel tax on 1 gallon of gas. And typically that's separated between the state and the Fed, which, just simple numbers. 25 cents go to the state, 25 cents goes to the Fed. And gas stations in this country pump, hundreds of thousands of gallons a month in fuel per station. And you go to the Costco or Sam's Club, and there's right metropolitan areas, these gas stations are pumping 1.5 million gallons a month. So just one Costco station is literally 50 cents a gallon, million gallons, that's $500,000. You're talking about just one Costco gas station that's helping the United States government, state, and Fed, is they're getting just $500,000 a month. So you start multiplying that throughout all the gas stations in the country, and for the average gas station, those guys are pumping about 150,000 gallons a month. So you're looking at our $75,000 of monies. And then you look at the oil industry that's pumping the oil, and the tankers that have to bring into port. They have to pay port fees and unloading fees and pipeline fees. I mean, there's billions of dollars, if not trillions of dollars, that is an infrastructure of the world governments that are taxing this oil and gas and your aviation fuel, and the list goes on and on and on. So getting rid of all this fossil fuel, yeah, it's a great thing for the environment, supposedly, but it literally just makes the world a third world country, if you kind of understand that language. So electric agenda, what needs to happen in that agenda is the realization that if you have an electric car, you're probably going to be paying about $100 a month in taxes to drive that car around, or they're just going to resort to your car's tracked for every mile you drive, and you're charged that way. But there's not going to be the escape of the world governments feeding off of transportation, and that's never talked about in any agenda that's talked about, and it's converting or going away from fossil fuels. And right now, with the world oil just going broke, it's not a good thing. These world governments are going to go broke. And just an example from our own country, picture this country no longer being able to subsidize and help people and help the infrastructure of education and roads, and you can just go on and on and on in the job. So this is something that isn't really talked about in the general media, and it should be addressed more, because it is the world oils that make this world go round. Just got the ST tinted, LA Tint, Manassas, Virginia. They do a great job. They got a really good crew here, and I can't emphasize enough that you should come to LA Tint, Manassas, Virginia. You're going to get a really good tint job and good pricing. Another ride, another vehicle, and it's interesting here. I'm just jumping in my Ford Expedition, my 2019 Platinum Ford Expedition, which I'll do a whole review on here another day. But I'm looking at the radio controls, and like I was telling you in these other videos, each car kind of is a little different, but oh, there it is. There's the volume. There's the volume where you can control the radio, because I was looking over here and like no volume mute, so it does have that. So this here's a really nice car, and I'll definitely do a full review on this here in the near future. So had a good ride in the Explorer ST, and that's back home now. I'm back on the road again.